The Washington Post is having money problems, folks. Now, the Washington Post can sustain these money problems because they are owned by what is he? The second richest, third richest? Well, anyway, one of the top 5 richest people in the world. But this is a New York Times report. A decade ago, Jeff Bezos bought a newspaper. Now he's paying attention to it again. So Bezos bought the Washington Post in 2013. And they kind of buried the lead here because a lot of other outlets that jumped on this report, jumped on this paragraph right here. Pardon me. The Post is on pace to lose about $100 million in 2023, according to 2 people with knowledge of the company's finances. 2 other people briefed on the situation said the company was expecting to miss its forecast for ad revenue this year. They spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal financial matters. The Post has struggled to increase the number of its paying customers since the 2020 election, when its digital subscriptions peaked at 3 million. It now has about 2.5 million. So that is obviously 500,000 lost subscriptions there. That is quite significant. Bezos' purchase of the Washington Post ended decades of ownership by the Graham family, which had steered the paper through its legendary coverage of Watergate and the Pentagon Papers. The Graham family had that paper since 1946, so they owned it for more than half a century up until Bezos bought it, and signified a new era of expansion under one of the world's most famous entrepreneurs. In a meeting with staff shortly after his purchase, Mr. Bezos encouraged Post employees to experiment digitally, taking advantage of the, quote, gifts of the internet, such as global reach, that had made Amazon a stunning success. He provided ample financial support to expand the newsroom. Mr. Bezos weighed in on product decisions and hired Fred Ryan, former chief executive of Politico, to serve as publisher to replace Catherine Weymouth, a scion of the Graham family. He kept Mr. Barron in place as the Post's top editor until his retirement in 2021, frequently referring to him as the best journalism tutor an owner could ask for. He helped choose Sally Busby as a successor to Mr. Barron, inviting her to his home in Washington's upscale Kalorama neighborhood. In January, Jeff Bezos made a rare appearance in the newsroom. He sat in on a morning news meeting, and later in the day he met with a handful of Post journalists. During some of his gatherings, several Post employees expressed concerns about Fred Ryan's missteps and the direction of the paper. In June, Mr. Ryan announced his resignation, telling employees that he planned to start the Center on Public Civility, a new project by the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation, where he is chairman of the board. And this is an interesting piece of this as well. Mr. Bezos has personally weighed in on an experimental project being developed for the Post's opinion section, which is being run by the editorial page editor David Shipley, a former Bloomberg editor he helped recruit. The initiative, which doesn't yet have an official name, is exploring a forum for readers, this is interesting, in cities across the United States to submit their own opinions and commentary. So what it sounds like is he's going to try and turn the Washington Post website into a more social media type atmosphere where the people can actually post their editorials, their essays, and share them around, which is very interesting because, number one, I actually think that's not a bad idea, but it definitely cuts against the narrative from a lot of these establishment outlets, including the New York Times and, of course, the Washington Post, that they know what's best and that they have to control narratives. And now you see that model is starting to tank a little bit, partly because trust in media is eroding, but also partly because a lot of their base went back to brunch once Biden won and they became less interested in the news. But now you're seeing Bezos saying, hey, maybe we should adapt more of a social media type interactive forum-like project, and we'll see what happens when people start posting opinion pieces on the Washington Post's website, if and when that takes off, how free that discourse will be. Because I know for sure if they start putting shit up there, that gives outlets like ours an opportunity to actually go on and post stuff in a forum where you might hope to open up some eyes, right? Like, what if we could post our content in a Washington Post social media type forum? That gives us a chance to get our message through to some of the most brainwashed people in the world and hopefully, break them out of their hypnosis.
Well, it sounded like Substack to me. That's the first thing that came to my mind. Like, is this like a Bezos' own Substack? Is that the idea? I mean, I do like that idea, but will the people who actually read the Washington Post, first of all, evolve in a depth? I mean, can people even trust something that it's owned by the Washington Post, the social media owned by Jeff Bezos? I mean, I guess people trust Elon Musk to do it. I don't know. I'm just curious how this concept would be. But I think overall what you read in the article is that nobody actually, like I said, the media is dying, you know, as I told them to their face, you know, nobody wants to read your shitty articles anymore. So, in a loving way.
Well, here, let's see it. It's funny because I did pull that because I knew it would be relevant to this segment. So here is your intervention. Do you want to set this up? I'm sure you know what we're talking about here.
The lecture hall with Seymour Hersh?
Yeah.
This one.
Sure. So that's on the stage, this was at Columbia School of Journalism here in New York. On the stage, you have the executive editor of the New York Times, Reuters, I think, what's her name? Oh, Sally Busby, who was Washington Post, yep, who was referenced in the article we were just reading, and some lady from the LA Times and Reuters and stuff, and then there's Joe Capehart moderating the actual thing. And also there were other journalists in the audience too, like my favorite Masha Gessen. There we go. I was thinking of the Jimmy Dore producer, Mishka Paul. And Masha Gessen is also there in the audience. And yeah, and then, well, you know, this is what I tell them.
All right, here we go.
Oh, is this the lecture hall with Seymour Hersh? I'm looking for the one with Seymour Hersh because it's a policy and press hall event, so shouldn't we be talking about the Nord Stream since that's the biggest story of the century? And you guys, you know, I mean, you have the executive editor of the New York Times there who came out with a phony story to try and block Seymour Hersh. It's just kind of funny how that happened, you know? I mean, did you even acknowledge Seymour Hersh? All of you are executive editors of papers that broke Pentagon, My Lai, Watergate. Is this the same papers or not? I mean, is there anything you've gotten right in the last 20 years, or am I mistaken about that? I mean, it's just kind of funny because Iraq, wrong. Syria, wrong. Russiagate, really wrong. Okay, I mean, the list goes on and on. So the last thing you could do to try and actually fix your reputation is acknowledge that through leaks, we had to find out that Zelensky was going to bomb Moscow on the anniversary. I mean, if you're so impartial, shouldn't you at least say, right, that Zelensky was going to bring us on the verge of World War III? That seems pretty fair. While Julian Assange rots in prison, all of you got, you know, fat checks because he's in jail for doing your job. And you know what? Tucker Carlson ain't no Seymour Hersh, but he did something you guys are scared to do. Speak the truth and actually be critical of the war, which is why he was actually fired from Fox, because you are all cowards. Every single one of you. None of you have actually had any relevancy. And you know what? The mainstream press is now dying. Nobody's ever going to listen to you again. You have no credibility with the public. The only people who care about what you have to say are elite assholes who have nothing productive to say anymore.
Like those
and
in
it's
the room.
dying off. So will you at least say something, either about Nord Stream or Ukraine or the fact that Zelensky brought us to the verge of World War III and the only reason we knew about that was through leaks? Go ahead. It's a free speech event, right? You guys are the press.
Well, look, that's exactly the response you get. What do I always say? You know, people have said in the audience they want us to really trademark and get trending that phrase, the liberal cat stare. Whereas when you start talking sense to them, when you start talking real things, you don't get a response. You get what they gave you just there. You said, do you have anything to say about Seymour Hersh? That's it. That's it.
Nancy Pelosi is a master at that stare where she just looks at you and smiles. You know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, we'll play the rest of this.
Say something here. Mr. Khan, come on. You know, you're the executive editor of the New York Times, you know. I'm just trying to get into some good trouble here, man. Woo, listen, Karen, get out of my face for a second. I got to talk to these gentlemen. Well, I just want to hear what they have to say. Go ahead, I'm done.
Wait your turn.
Now they said wait your turn. Were there questions at this event, or did you not know that? Was that not clear?
It was not clear, and I did not know that. When I interrupted, when I walked in there, I was actually like 5 minutes late. Kynan and the other guy were in there, and Kynan was like, "Come on, man, you know you're late. You're gonna miss the thing." And I was like, and then we actually had something to get to, so like, I think we were like, well, we can't stay for too long, so let's just get this over with now. I mean, this will be better than if we just ask a question. So, and the fact that they let me speak for so damn long too. I mean, yes, you'll notice, like, I found this out later. The reason why the guy who takes me out is the dean of Columbia School of Journalism. The reason he takes me out is because the police are legally, or not the police, but campus security. The guy you see in the police hat there is not actually a cop. He's a rent-a-cop for Columbia Security. He is legally not allowed to put his hands on me. But the dean of Columbia School of Journalism didn't care and said, fuck it, I'm going to take this into my own hands. I'm just going to take him out of here, which was illegal. I could have sued him. I don't have the money to sue him. This guy has money and resources, okay? And it wasn't even worth, you know, it doesn't.
Let's move those posters. Let's move those posters. Let's get a legal defense. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Fund Jose's legal case against Columbia. Indeed.
You could project if we can't.
I would just say I think it's important to hear everybody's point of view.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right.
I do think that we need to give our moderator a chance to ask other questions.
We're on the verge of World War III.
Some of the people in the audience also do so. Thank you. Really, thank you.
Say something about this bombing. We blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Listen, don't stand there while there are people rotting in prison. Nobody said anything about Uhuru, right? The socialists who are in jail for being critical of this war. God damn it.
Let's go.
At least say something about the people in jail for being critical of this war. They don't deserve to be in prison right now.
There you go. That was one of your best. I mean, you have a lot of them now, but that was really one of your best ones.
Good times. Yeah, you know, ever since then, they don't let me in anymore to anywhere. I thought it was funny that the New York Post thought it enough of a story to write about the fact that Kynan and I couldn't get in to an AOC town hall.
Please clap.